Dear ladies and gentlemen, dear members of parliament, dear Professor Groenwald, Dr. van Huistee, Dr. Verhoef, viewers online, I'd like to extend a very warm welcome to you all. My name is Bart Sattler. I'm the Counselor for Innovation and Technology at the Royal Netherlands Embassy in Berlin, and it's my honor to serve as your Master of Ceremonies tonight. For tonight's event, I'll be guiding you and the speakers through an interesting and exciting program. In my daily job, my colleagues and me aim to strengthen the innovation and technology collaboration between Germany and the Netherlands. We are active in many areas, ranging from digitalization, energy and climate, healthcare, to key enabling technologies like artificial intelligence, quantum technologies, and photonics. We work closely and intensively with Dutch and German industry, research organizations, universities, and governments to achieve this aim. We often focus in our work on the economic impact of technologies and innovations. But when we talk about topics like energy and climate, healthcare and key enabling technologies, or Schlüsseltechnologien auf Deutsch, it's clear that technology innovation by itself cannot be value neutral. Ethical aspects and societal impact, they may have always played an important role, and a clear assessment of their potential impact is essential. I'm therefore very honored that we can host tonight's event with two organizations that aim to achieve exactly that. The Rathenau Institute from the Netherlands, and I like this name so much I'm going to pronounce it in German, the Bureau für Technikfolgen-Abschätzung beim Deutschen Bundestag. We're looking forward to the ceremony of the handover of the Apta presidency, followed by a very interesting panel discussion on digitalization. So without much further ado, I'd like to introduce the first speaker of tonight, the Ambassador of the Netherlands to Germany, His Excellency Mr. Ronald van Roeden. Mr. van Roeden has been Ambassador of the Netherlands to Germany since the summer of 2021. Before taking up his current position, he was, amongst others, Ambassador and Deputy Permanent Representative of the Netherlands to the European Union and Deputy Secretary General of the Ministry of Foreign Affairs. Mr. van Roeden, dear Ronald, the floor is all yours.
Meine sehr verehrten Damen und Herren, ich glaube, das geht jetzt weiter auf Englisch, aber dear Chairperson, Mr. Gehring, dear Members of Parliament, dear Mr. Dr. van Huistee, dear Mr. Dr. Verhoef, dear Mr. Professor Dr. Groenwald, and honored guests, a warm welcome to everyone here in this room, and of course also to those who follow this through internet. I think it's great that we are able to connect, and that also that we are again able to meet physically, especially in these challenging times. And I'm not only then referring, of course, to the COVID pandemic that we are dealing with for more than 2 years, but of course our mind and hearts also go to the crisis further east, in particular the Ukrainian people. And, I think we cannot have any meeting without referring to what is going on there, because the ongoing attacks by Russian forces in Ukraine are of utmost concern to us all. Freedom of Ukrainians is under severe attack. There are millions of civilians that are brutally exposed to the cruelties of war, with hundreds of people killed, millions of people on the move, and this is all happening at our doorstep in Europe. And actually, I must admit that I had never expected to witness this in my lifetime again. And let us hope that an agreement can still be reached diplomatically, that the suffering of the Ukrainian people will come to an end, and that the security of us all can be restored as soon as possible. Now, allow me to shift to the topic of today's event, shaping tomorrow's digital society. And digital technologies are a game changer for our society. They challenge us to think about the way we want to live in the new digital world. And this leads to questions about who controls the digital world, who owns the data that are collected about us, and how privacy, data safety, and security can be best maintained. And over the past couple of weeks, we have also seen that the use of digital technology has played a key role in the armed conflict in Ukraine as a tool for cyber attacks, for digital protest, but also as an accelerator for information and disinformation. This once again underlines the ever-growing impact that digital technologies have on our society at large. It also emphasizes the importance of the need for an ongoing public and political debate about the impact of science and technology on humanity. And that is why I'm very pleased that we have here today representatives of two outstanding and very renowned institutes, namely the Office of Technology Assessment at the German Bundestag and the Rathenau Institute. They play a very important role in advising their respective parliaments on the possible social, economic, and environmental impact of these new sciences and technologies. And both the TAB and the Rathenau Institute are members of the European Network for Parliamentary Technology Assessment Institutions, EPTA, and we are gathered here today on the occasion of the handover of the EPTA presidency from the Netherlands to Germany. Now, as neighboring countries, the Netherlands and Germany share a long tradition of very close cooperation in all possible fields. And if I've learned anything in the past 6 months, it is that this really includes all possible fields, and that is, of course, a very good thing. And as such, we are also growing ever closer as innovation partners. And this was underlined very clearly with the signing by our governments of the German-Dutch Innovation and Technology Pact in January 2021. It was on both sides of the border by previous governments, but it still is as valid as today. And it bears really significance. And under this pact, we work jointly to bolster innovation cooperation on themes such as smart industry, mobility, healthcare, key technologies, and of course, carbon reduction in industry and society. And in addition to this, we are important partners in European research programs, like Horizon Europe. And we both believe in close public-private cooperation. And you can only be competitive and pioneering if government, industry, and research institutions work together. And we can join forces in research and innovation to produce what was once defined by, I believe, Schumpeter as neue Kombinationen. So the speech is not totally in English. That is also something you can conclude from this. Now, innovation, of course, it determines our future earning power and also our future position in the global economy. And that is something that the Netherlands, as one of the world's most open economies, heavily relies on. The position and the development within the global economy. And as partners in innovation, our countries, our businesses are working in a geopolitical context. And the current situation, the geopolitical situation, has made it even clearer that the EU needs to strengthen its strategic value chains. And it helps when Germany and the Netherlands join their efforts to enhance cooperation on innovation teams and technologies that are crucial to our societies, and if they join forces also at the European level. And ultimately, it is people who are at the heart of innovation, and we should never forget that, no matter how impressive technology in itself can be. Ladies and gentlemen, without further ado, I would like to give the floor to Mr. Guy Gering, the chairman of the Committee of Education, Research and Technology Assessment of the German Bundestag. And I thank you for your kind attention. Mr. Gering, you have the floor. Thank you.
Ja, guten Abend, Ambassador, colleagues from the German Bundestag, honored guests both here in the room and following online. Thank you very much for inviting me to your embassy in these challenging times. I'm very impressed by this fantastic place, which reminds me a little of Amsterdam. And of course, That's no coincidence. As I learned, we are currently at the site of the only canal in Berlin to have also been built by Dutch engineers in the 17th century. We have gathered here to mark a very happy occasion, the formal handing over of the Apta presidency from the Netherlands to Germany. This event was originally due to have taken place last year in The Hague, but due to the COVID situation, it was postponed until today. Since I was founded 32 years ago, in 1990, the idea of European cooperation has been at the heart of the Apta network of parliamentary technological assessment institutions. Both the Netherlands with the Rathenau Institute and Germany with the Bundestag Committee on Education, Research and Technology Assessment, which I am chairman of, and the TAB, the Office of Technological Assessment at the German Bundestag, are founding members of Apta. Our coming together here today represent European cooperation in action, and in particular the Dutch-German friendship, as long as we stay clear of football, you understand. Since the early years, Apta has grown significantly and successfully. The network now has 25 members, which is a very welcome development. In recent years, it was broadened its appeal beyond European borders and now includes the American GAO, Government Accountability Office, along with institutions in Chile, Mexico, Japan, Korea as associated members. At times such as these in particular, this is a great significance when cooperation in spirit of trust across national borders is so very important in order for us together to tackle global crises and challenges such as the climate crisis, biodiversity, pandemics, migration, war, and peace. Coincident with this is the fact that cooperation with the associated Apta member from Russia is currently suspended as Russia wages a war of aggression in breach of international law against Ukraine. My colleagues and fellow members of the Bundestag, Mrs. Kraft, Professor Seiter, Professor Kaufman, and Mr. Lenkert belong, alongside myself and other members from all parliamentary groups, to the rapporteur group on technological assessment. Together, we are responsible for ensuring that the scientific advice by the TAB on matters of societal change relating to research and technology innovation flows productively into the political work of the Bundestag. And the topic we will discuss shortly, shaping tomorrow's digital society, is a prime example of this. How do technological and digital innovations shape our daily lives and ultimately change society as a whole? This process of transformation needs to go hand in hand with political and policy making in order to amplify the benefits for all and to avoid any potential negative impact and risk to the economy, environment, and society. Digitalization must also always focus on matters of ethics, information and disinformation, security, and climate action, such as green IT. Parliamentary technological assessment of the kind carried out by the TAB here and by the Rathenau Institute in the Netherlands provides an essential foundation of this. We need neutral and reliable information that is rooted in the science in order to be able to have political and societal debates that are vigorous and evidence-based, and to ultimately take political decisions sensibly and based on the facts. I'm especially pleased that now, after 2 years of difficulties due to the pandemic, we are finally able to meet again in person for occasions such as this. The digital revolution makes a lot of things possible, but enjoying engaging discussions with highly motivated individuals over delicious food from the Netherlands just can't be replaced by bits and bytes. Ambassador, on behalf of everyone present, allow me to express my sincerest thanks for inviting us here today. I look forward to a productive evening and pleasant get-together and to continue the close cooperation between the EPTA partners, cooperation that I would be glad to see deepen. Thank you very much.
Ladies and gentlemen, now it's time for the official ceremony of the handover of the presidency of EPTA from the Rathenau Institute to the Bureau für Technikfolgen-Abschätzung beim Deutschen Bundestag. EPTA, as was already mentioned, is the European network for parliamentary technology assessment institutions. The 25 members of EPTA give advice to the parliaments on ethical and social aspects of technologies and innovations. For the handover, I'd like to ask Mr. Gehring to come to the front again, Dr. Petra Verhoef, and Professor Dr. Armin Grunwald to step forward. Mr. Gehring was already introduced by our ambassador, but Dr. Petra Verhoef, she's the team coordinator at the Rathenau Institute. She's responsible for technology assessment in the areas of health, medicine, biotechnology, and agriculture. She and her team organized the EPTA research and events with the Rathenau Institute when the Rathenau Institute was the chair of the EPTA network during the presidency of the Netherlands in 2021. Professor Dr. Armin Grunwald is head of the Office of Technology Assessment at the German Bundestag, professor of philosophy and ethics at the Karlsruhe Institute for Technology, and member of the steering committee of AKTech and the German Ethics Council, amongst others. Dear Petra, Kai, Armin, the floor is all yours.
Thank you very much, Mr. Sattler. It's an honor and a pleasure to hand over the presidency of EPTA from the Netherlands to Germany. And I'm also very grateful to the Dutch embassy that we can have this event here. So many thanks for that. Before I can do that officially, I have to introduce an object to you, and I will get it from below. You will recognize this as a riding crop or a whip, and there's a history about this whip. It was bought in 2010 in Copenhagen by the president of EPTA at that time. That was in Denmark. It was the chair of the Danish Board of Technology. He bought this whip because he felt there was a need to have an official symbol of being a president of EPTA. And he handed it over at that time to Germany, who took over the presidency of Denmark. He handed it over to Armin Grunwald and Ulla Burkhardt, who was at that time taking the role that Kai Gehring has now. And she accepted it gratefully, but she said, I think we will never use it. And I fully agree with her, because we in the EPTA network, we don't need a whip. We are inspired by the mission that we have together to do parliamentary technology assessment, to assess the impact of technology on society. And with these words, I would like to officially hand it over to Germany, presidency. Okay. I wish you good luck in this new year. And I look forward, of course, to collaborating in this wonderful network. Okay.
Dankeschön. Ich nehme das mit Humor entgegen und wir setzen weiter viele Friedenszeichen. Die brauchen wir in diesen Zeiten mehr als dringend.
And if I may say something, I feel a bit touched today. I missed EPTA in the last 2 years. I missed the colleagues. Seeing them on the screen is not a really good substitution. It's a touching move, a touching date now, and I'm really happy that you are here. I'm proud of being president of Apta together with Kai Gehring and the rapporteurs, and I guess we will do our very best to navigate Apta through this year. And I'm happy to be able to invite you already now to join our annual Apta Conference, which will take place here in Berlin in the buildings of the Bundestag in the mid of October. I will not say a lot about the content of the conference, only one word which received a new meaning over the last weeks. The key notion will be disruption. And I guess this will be really up to date, even more than we had expected. Thank you.
Thank you, Petra, Kai, and Armin. You can return to your seats for now. Ladies and gentlemen, now it's time to move to another highlight of tonight's event, the podium discussion on shaping tomorrow's digital society. As stated in the invitation of this event, digital technologies are a game changer for our society and the way we live together in a multitude of ways, in our personal and professional lives. The process of digitalization started with the conception of the internet in the 1970s, picked up considerable pace with the advent of smartphones only 15 years ago, and is now reaching almost all aspects of our lives. With immersive technologies like augmented reality, virtual reality, and voice computers, the physical and digital worlds are becoming closely interlinked and merge into one. Being digital is not a choice or an option anymore. It is increasingly becoming a requirement for living our everyday lives. Together with significant improvements in convenience, quality of life, welfare and prosperity, these changes also bring a lot of questions for society and politics to address. Finding answers to questions like these and providing orientation for members of parliament and other policymakers is the prime mission of technology assessment institutions like Rathenau and TAB. The Rathenau Institute has recently published a set of design requirements for tomorrow's digital society, which will serve as a starting point of the discussion tonight. I'd like to call our distinguished panelists to the stage. First of all, the members of parliament, who are all members of the Ausschuss für Bildung, Forschung und Technikfolgen-Abschätzung. Mr. Kai Gehring, chair of the Committee on Education, Research and Technology Assessment, has been a member of the Bundestag since 2005 for Bündnis 90 Die Grünen. Bitte, kommen Sie vorwärts. Frau Laura Kraft, member of the Bundestag since 2021 for Bündnis 90 Die Grünen. Ms. Kraft is also a member of the German-French Parliamentary Assembly. Professor Stefan Seiter, member of the Bundestag since 2021 for the FDP, professor of economics at ESB Business School in Reutlingen. Professor Dr. Ingenieur Michael Kaufman, member of the Bundestag since 2021 for the AfD and professor of mechanical engineering at the Ernst Abbe Hochschule in Jena. Dr. Mariette van Huistee, research coordinator at the Rathenau Institute. Ms. van Huistee is an expert in the international normative framework on responsible business conduct and has extensive experience with multi-stakeholder processes and multidisciplinary qualitative research. And lastly, the two people who were already introduced before, Professor Dr. Armin Grunwald and Dr. Petra Verhoef, who will take on the job of moderating this part of the event. Dear Petra, dear panelists, the floor is all yours.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Sattler. Yes, I will host this panel discussion for this evening. This will last 1 hour and I will explain to you how we have organized it or how we plan to organize it. We will start with 2 short introductions, one by Dr. van Huistee and one by Professor Grunwald. Short introductions about 5 to 7 minutes to set the scene, to give you a flavor on all the challenges that we face when we want to shape tomorrow's digital society. After that, I will engage in a short discussion with each of the panelists, and then we will move to the audience here in the room. You will be able to ask questions or also give your opinion on the topics that we are addressing here on stage. And hopefully also people joining via the Zoom, the other EPTA directors might be here, I'm not totally sure, but we will find out. I will step back now. I will first invite Mariette to the stage. She will, well, and I think also this was introduced already, she will address very topical issues related to the digitization of our society based on research that the Rathenau Institute has done recently. Mariette?
Thank you. Good evening, everyone. How wonderful to be here together with you in this fantastic building. So very much thanks to the Dutch Embassy for hosting us here. I work for the Rathenau Institute as a research coordinator, and last year was an important political year for the Netherlands because we had parliamentary elections, which also means a new government, and our permanent Parliamentary Committee on Digital Affairs was established, because we didn't have that before, so that was established last year. And on that occasion, we made an assessment of the most urgent issues for politics to address in shaping our digital society. And we identified 8 priorities. I can't all go through them very thoroughly, but I'll mention them quickly. First of all, the need for an inclusive digital democracy. Second, an honest data economy. A robust digital infrastructure. A decent digital government. Trustworthy immersive technology. Sustainable digitalization. Responsible sharing of digital medical data. And last, high-quality digital education. So let me go into 2 of these points in the face of time, which are the need for trustworthy immersive technology and the need for sustainable digitalization. So what do we mean with immersive technology? We mean technologies that immerse us even deeper in digital society. And they were already mentioned. We talk about virtual reality, augmented reality, and speech technology. And virtual reality is a type of technology that creates a completely artificial world for us, completely generated by computers. Augmented reality places a digital layer between us and reality, and augments reality in that way. And speech technology helps us talk to computers, and they listen to us, right? So these technologies really surround us. And there are some very positive aspects about it. Maybe you already have some experience yourself. But for instance, with virtual reality has great traits to make simulations of real-life events for training and for education. Or augmented reality. For instance, surgeons can use it to put a digital layer, for instance, on a body that's being searched upon, and it can help them in their surgery. Or for instance, speech technology. People who've lost their voice can actually have their voice restored by means of these technologies. So there's very, very beneficial elements to that. But there's also more dystopian scenarios possible. For instance, when we think of, when it's applied in schools, when we think of our education system being commercialized, like internet is, for instance, would we like our children to grow up in commercialized, to be taught in a commercialized environment? Or about when we talk about augmented reality, this vision that we would all walk around in glasses and we could filter our vision as we see fit. I could see pink trees, you could see brown trees, or maybe even more disturbingly, I could filter out homeless people from the street. What would that do with our shared sense of reality and maybe even with democracy? So there's some elements there that we think it's really important actually for politics and also the public now to be thinking about that now in order to guide this technology in a direction that we all want and get the benefits, but maybe mitigate the risks. So there's an urgent political and public debate needed about these issues. And we wrote a manifesto to set 10 design criteria that we called 10 design criteria for shaping digital society. These 10 design criteria, I won't sum them up, otherwise there's a lot of summing up going on. But to give you an example, a teaser, 3 of the design criteria are: we want to remain in control of our digital body, we want to be able to know that something is fake, and we want protection against manipulation and persuasion. And so we have a number of more design requirements that we hope also will inspire politics to actually realize these ambitions while also reaping the benefits. And if you're curious, if you just search online for Rathenau and manifesto, you will find the full manifest. Then let me turn to the second urgent political issue that we identified, and that is the need for sustainable digitalization. Europe is committed to cut carbon emissions and to mitigate climate change, and therefore we need an energy transition. And in this energy transition, we will need energy generation of smaller units, so solar panels on roofs, but also home batteries and batteries in cars. And they will all generate power, but then it needs to be fed back into the electricity grid. And that's quite a big task. And then you also need energy data. So this data is really important to help the energy transition. So there it goes hand in hand, but digitalization can also work against our climate ambitions, because digitalization costs energy and data also costs energy. So the more data we use, the more data centers we need and the more energy we will use. And even while there's a lot of innovations in terms of efficiency, until now it seems that doesn't keep up with our exponential growth of the use of data. So there's some real challenges there also for politics to solve, and some difficult discussions to have.
Mariette, are you rounding up?
Yes, I am. In closing, okay, let me summarize the 2 points that I mentioned. So the importance of responsible development and implementation of immersive technologies in society, and the importance of seeing the digital transition in the perspective of sustainable development. So I really hope these issues inspire political debate, both in the German Bundestag and also in the Dutch Parliament, and that it will really help also inspire further collaboration within the EPTA network, because we have some interesting times ahead. I look forward to an interesting discussion. Thank you, Petra.
Thank you very much, Mariette, for starting to feed the discussion. Before we start with the discussion, I would first like to ask Armin Grunwald to also give his insights that are important also to shape this discussion, because that's where we start.
Your Excellency, Mr. Ambassador, dear colleagues and guests, it's really wonderful to have this event today, and also greetings to the screens. I see Theo and some other colleagues, Michael from Vienna, wonderful to see you. I should add 2 points which we agreed about in advance to this meeting. But before, I would like to tell you only a few words about some characteristics, 2 characteristics of the work of the Office of Technology Assessment at the German Bundestag. First, there is a very clear mandate, or let me say, complementary view on the political and the scientific side of the cooperation. The agenda setting of the Office of Technology Assessment is a political issue. And in this way, the Bundestag decides on our agenda, represented by the committee chaired by Kai Gehring. That's a political task to rank the various themes and to determine the priorities. As soon as our agenda has been determined, then it's our task to work on the projects and to deliver the results in scientific independence. That means there is no political influence on the results. That is our responsibility to take care of scientific quality and independence. And at the very end, after we have finished, then the political debate starts, takes up our results, and starts evaluating and debating them in the political arena. And the second, and it's related with the first one, it's about the type of our results. You may know many academies of science. They have this mode of giving recommendations. They say society and politics shall go this way in shaping the digital future and not in that way. That would be wrong. And that is the optimal way. This is not our way to do the work. We give recommendations. And we do not give recommendations to the parliament, but we develop options, what can be developed, and we explore the implications and consequences of these options in order to deliver a kind of structured landscape, or better, a roadmap of the future, but we do not give a recommendation which of the roads shall be taken. This is on behalf of the German Bundestag after democratic debates and decision-making processes. In the more than 30 years of our existence, we delivered about 200 studies to the Parliament. Most of them covered the big issues such as energy, the environment, health, pharmaceutics, biotechnology, agriculture, and so on. Some of them, and sometimes they found the largest attraction in the public, are of specific type, and I would like only to mention 3 of them. The first is our study on the consequences of a long-lasting blackout of the electricity supply in Germany, which is already 10 years old now, but it is cited again and again. It does not lose its relevance. The second one is on the balance of the Central European summertime, which found its way to the European Parliament, as you may know. And the third one is on the light pollution we have in our society, which is an issue. Many people notice this light pollution, but it has not made an issue of TA so far. So it's very interesting to work for the German Bundestag, and we learn ourselves a lot by doing these projects. Now, a few words on 2 further items, possible items for the discussion. The first one might sound a bit philosophical. It's about new relations between digital technologies and humans, about taking autonomy, giving autonomy to technologies, giving decision-making capabilities to technology, allowing learning technologies, artificial intelligence to become part of decision-making systems, and so on. But as soon as we go to practical fields, such as care or the workplace, then we see that philosophy meets politics in these fields. For example, the TAB did a comprehensive study on care robots a few years ago, and this also found great attention in the public. And at the very end, we came up at the level of ethics. What is about a good care? What does this has this to do with human dignity? So we are at the level of philosophy, but it has practical reasons as soon as care robots are allowed to become part of care homes and get into intimate touch with inhabitants. Take the example of Industry 4.0 as a second example, where the protagonists talk about, well, robots will be our new colleagues. We will talk to them as if they were humans, and we will talk to them on equal footing, they say. But what does this mean, equal footing? Who is the boss in the last consequence? What's about responsibility, accountability, and liability in case of damage or accident? So there are many issues which have a philosophical side, but practical consequences. And we also worked on the digitalization of the workplace in the coming years in order to inform the Bundestag.
Professor Grunwald?
2 minutes?
Yes.
And I guess these 2 minutes, yes, I have the right to take these 2 minutes because it's on digitalization and democracy. And where, when, if not in the parliament, this may be made an issue. This is not surprising. And now when we talk about digitalization and democracy, most people are concerned. Yeah, we think about, well, fake news and manipulation, hate speech, conspiracy theories, and whatever, manipulation and all these bad things. If we go back 20 or 25 years, and I guess some of you will be able to do this, most of you not because you are too young. At that time, in the early time of the internet, the visionaries had a great utopian idea that with the internet, all dictatorships would come to an end, that democracy will win the game, that we all will be able to communicate to each other in a global village without gatekeepers and hierarchies. That was a great vision. And now, seeing the opposite at place, we should not laugh at those early visionaries because the potential is still there. It's our task to work on realizing more of the potential of digital communication. And in this way, we supported the Bundestag by several studies on online participation, for example, or by e-voting, which is still under construction, I should say, and by other studies. So it is an issue to not only to lament about these bad stories about internet communication, social media and politics, but also to look for how can we strengthen and develop democracy further by using these digital technologies. So that's all. At the very end, I would like to thank very much for your kind hospitality and for the opportunity to be in this wonderful building. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Professor Grunwald. Thank you again, Mariette, Dr. van Huistee, I should say. Yes, and I think Professor Grunwald explained very well explicitly. Let's also look at the benefits of digitization and not only discuss the risks. And I think that is an important message. So I think we can address both tonight in this panel discussion. I will remain seated on this chair because I think it's better also for the camera work, but I will address first each of the panelists. And I would like to start with Laura Kraft. You are a new member of parliament, as you have just explained to me. And you've heard well, these starting talks, and of course it's a vast arena almost of topics that relate to the digitalization of society. But for you as a parliamentarian, what are, let's say, the topics that you feel need your attention most when it comes to digitalization of society? And that's a very broad question, but what comes to mind first when you think about that?
Okay. Oh, this is already working. Okay. So first of all, thank you for having us here. It's a pleasure, really. And yeah, the input was already quite good, actually. There were so many things we have to consider. And what first comes to my mind is, of course, let's say it like this. All the topics we are dealing with technology assessment, they are touching us personally because they are dealing with the everyday things that we dealing with as a society. For example, let's say healthcare. This is something that comes to my mind quickly when I'm thinking about all these topics. So we have seen digitalization. There is a big step, and that's speeding up. Everything is speeding up due to the Corona crisis. We saw there's many things are happening there. So, and we are thinking like, how can we improve the healthcare situation in the society? And there are big steps happening, but we also have to give the guidelines and as politicians. And I think this is yeah, this is one of the main parts, and there are other things also coming along with that. Professor Grunwald already said it. For example, he mentioned cybersecurity and the protection of democracy. This is also a big thing. We are talking about fake news, for example, and cyber has become a new conflict space. We can see it nowadays when we see the war going on in Ukraine and the propaganda and fake news, and we are dealing with it every day. People are dealing with it every day, and yeah, as politicians, we have to give guidelines and think like, how can we, yeah, let's say, in which society do we want to live? We have to speak about this, we have to debate about this, and we are actually doing it. And this is, for me, I really like this because what we are discussing there, this is relevant for all the people in the society. And this is, yeah, makes me curious about, yeah, about our research, what are we doing there. And it also shows like we have lots of big goals. We have to deal with all the topics like climate change, improving healthcare situation, yeah, democracy protection and all that stuff. And yeah.
Yes, thank you. So it's really a lot that you have to deal with as a parliamentarian. Last short question to you. Some say that the digitalization of society could lead to larger social gaps than that we currently already have, so that inequality could raise, could become bigger. Is that a worry that you have, that some will have benefit from digitalization and others will not, so that the societal gap will grow?
Well, actually, in the end, it depends on us, what we are doing as a society, what we are doing in politics, for example, because the digitalization cannot, the digital world, like the internet, cyber cannot do anything by itself. So everything that is happening there, it comes from us, actually. So, and yeah, that's why we have to discuss on these topics as a society. Inequality can be getting bigger, but we can also like, yeah, we can also help like there's yeah, less inequality. For example, let's say about the working environment, platform workers. This is also like a big thing, you know. Like, and if we see there are problems happening, like people are not treated the way they should be treated, or discrimination. This is also a thing. Then we have to work on these topics, and yeah. We have lots of things to face, and we have to recognize these problems, and then we have to work on them. And it's not just happening because of the digitalization, it's happening if we don't see these aspects and not working on them.
Yes. Thank you very much. You have a wide scope, I can hear that. And you are the person who said, I think when you started as a parliamentarian, that a good quality of a parliamentarian is, or a politician, is perseverance. And I think in this area we need it. Thank you. Okay, I would like to move on to the next person, and that is Professor Dr. Stefan Seiter. He's sitting actually next to me. I read in the small CV that you are really a family man. You like to do stuff with your grown-up sons, if I'm correct. Can you say very shortly, what has social media brought for you as a family? Do you use it a lot to interact? Very short, and then I will go to the tougher stuff.
Thank you very much for being here and that we could discuss this very important topic tonight. Social media is something that came into our family mainly by my youngest son. He's at the age of 22, and he started with Instagram and also Facebook. And then it was my wife mainly, and she did not invent it, but explores the social media. And then it was myself with the campaign for the election. And because before I only used Twitter to inform myself and so on. We do interact a lot via WhatsApp, for example. We send the pictures and so on, as everybody else does. But Somehow, and that's very astonished many people, my sons complain about using WhatsApp too much. Yeah, because they found out, and we already had this when we talked about democracy, that these technologies also have a very huge potential that you can control other people, you can monitor people, and my sons found out that their mother knows when they are online and not, okay? And when you're at the age of 16, you don't like that, okay?
Okay, well, that's a nice insight in your family life. If we really want to foster digitization, we really want to make use of it, we need to have access to a lot of digital data. Would you say that that allows for giving room to data protection? What is your view on that?
Yeah, you see, it's data protection, data security is one, I think, of the key facts in that field, key aspects, because using digitalization offers a lot of opportunities. Mentioned as before, for example, everything that has to do with healthcare. We could collect data, we can distribute data, but we need access to the data. So if we not allow for the access to data, then we can't use them. But when we give access to data, then we give access to ourselves, to our intimacy, to the data on ourselves, on our health, and so on. And we don't like that. I think I remember that, for example, in the Netherlands a few years ago, the parliament decided not to have smart grids because of data protection. And I think that's a very important topic. Who do we allow to have access to our data? And we all have in mind usually 1984 by George Orwell, where we have this powerful government that knows everything about everybody and monitors everybody. But now we learned that it's not only the government, it's also the private companies. And when we think about the book of Timothy Garton-Ash about free speech, where he shows us very well that these big companies have access to the data and we have a concentration process. And I think this shows us very much that we need a lot of competition in that field. We need a competition between firms so that we control them, that no single firm, no single government has the power to control everything.
Thank you very much. We will come back to that later on. Thank you very much. I will move on now to Kai Gering. Well, you have, of course, addressed us, but I would still like to ask you a question, of course. You are a co-author, and I must read this now, of the Strategic Party paper, Using Data for Change, Providing Responsible and Secure Data Exchange for Societal Innovation. And in fact, you are drafting out the establishment of a national data institution, a data center, as the focal point for a data ecosystem, I've read. So you are pleading for open data. And can you give examples of the societal innovations that you are referring to in that paper? It's about open access to data to shape societal innovations, or well, make meaningful innovation for citizens. That's what I understood. I read it. Can you explain a bit about that for the audience?
Ja, danke. Wir brauchen Open Data, Open Source, wir brauchen Open Innovation Systems, und wir haben in Deutschland die Herausforderung, dass wir sehr viele...
Can you switch to English, please?
No,
yeah, no, sorry, no, I understand it, but for the other...
Okay.
Oh, you will translate. Okay, no, sorry.
Okay.
Good.
In Deutschland haben
No,
wir
you can do
an
it.
sehr vielen Stellen Datensätze liegen, von denen man nicht weiß, die nicht sinnvoll miteinander verknüpft sind. Und das sind natürlich sehr schwierige datenschutzrechtliche Fragen und auch ethische Fragen. Aber wir könnten gerade bei der Bekämpfung von Krankheiten und Gesundheitsrisiken und für die Gesundheitsforschung eine ganze Menge mehr schaffen, wenn wir ein solches Dateninstitut hätten. Das wäre ein konkretes Anwendungsbeispiel.
Yes, we do need We do need open source and we need open data and innovation systems. And the challenge that we have in Germany is that we have the data which is stored in so many different places, and those different places where the data is stored are not linked in a sensible way. So that raises questions of data protection, ethical questions. And yes, there are things we could do in healthcare, for example. In healthcare, for example, we could use that data far more sensibly, and that is one of the ideas that this kind of data institution could do.
Thank you very much. Very clear, so that's a very concise message. How far are you in a few words? I mean, is it there already or is it in the process?
Die Niederlande und Deutschland haben eine Gemeinsamkeit. Beide Länder hatten vor kurzem einen Regierungswechsel. Und wir starten gerade durch, haben aber auch gemeinsam, alle miteinander, dass wir in einer Zeit der kumulierten Krisen leben. Die Corona-Krise ist noch nicht weg, die Klimakrise kontinuierlich da und jetzt haben wir noch eine Kriegskrise und ganz viele Gewissheiten sind futsch und die Welt gerät immer mehr aus den Fugen. Und deshalb haben wir noch kein Dateninstitut, aber als Fortschrittskoalition, SPD, Grüne und FDP, die Kolleginnen und Kollegen wollen sich trotzdem ran ans Werk machen, den Koalitionsvertrag auch in diesen Innovationspunkten abzuarbeiten. Und ich gehe davon aus, dass die Opposition auch tolle zusätzliche Konzepte vorlegen wird.
Yes, one thing that we have in common in the Netherlands and in Germany is that we just have a recent change of government. So we're at the beginning of a new term in office, and we're just beginning on that. And I think we can also say that we're living really in a time where there are so many different crises taking place in parallel that all add up together. You have the COVID crisis, which of course has not been finished yet, is still ongoing. You have the climate crisis, which has been ongoing and is of course still ongoing. And then, in addition to that, you also now have the war. So many things which seemed certain in the past now seem uncertain to us at this point in time. And it seems as if the world has almost gone off balance at the moment. And so, no, at the moment, we don't have this data institution. But we have a new government in Germany. We call ourselves the Coalition of Progress, the government made up of the Social Democrats, the Green Party and the FDP, the Liberals. And so we have various points in terms of innovation which are set out in the coalition agreement, and we do intend to work on those one by one. And I'm sure that the opposition as well will also be coming up with some additional points.
Thank you very much. Yes, if you don't mind, I will move on to the next person, but this was a very clear message. I can see that you have much bigger priorities now, but still, I am sure that in the future you will continue to work on this, and I think it's important. Okay, I would like to move on to Professor Dr. Michael Kaufman from the AfD. Yes, I read that you ride horses. You are a member of a riding club, so you must have thought, what is this with the riding crop and Apta? That was just warming up, but if you want to say something, but I have a question for you. Maybe you can combine it. I also read that you are very keen on securing the energy supply. My question to you is, could you describe the role of science for the process of digitization? And then also possibly in the context of ensuring the energy supply. If you can fit in the riding crop, then no, I'm joking, but okay. Please.
Yeah, thank you. Thanks again for having us here. I would like to add one point to the speech of Professor Grunwald. When I look at the headline of today's event, Shaping Digital Society, in my opinion, it is not up to us politicians to shape a digital society. Maybe we can push other players to shape digital society, for example, for example, universities, companies, media, and so on. But we politicians can't shape society. What we can do is to set guidelines, to give guidelines, to set limits, but not too much. We have to keep the room for development open as much as possible, but at the same time we have to assess risks to prevent damage from our society. That's especially our task for our associations of technology assessment. So when you ask what is the role of society in science, what is the role of science in digital development, especially in the energy sector? Of course, the role of this science cannot be underestimated, because this is the key factor for every problem we have in the future to solve. The key role in the future production of energy and so on. So of course, this role of science is very important.
Okay, thank you. I'm looking at Saskia. She's here in the room, and she is the timekeeper, because I'm lost in time a bit. Okay, still some time left. Sorry. Thank you. Just another short question to you. When you go riding, now that we are discussing the riding crop, what do the friends you ride with, what digital issues do they have? I mean, they are citizens like yourself, but what are the digital issues that they as a citizen discuss with you? Okay, do you have an example?
Writing is not very much linked to digitalization. So, but of course, for example, we use digital maps and digital communication. For example, if someone falls off his horse somewhere in the field, so maybe he wants to call emergency and so on, that's possible. These are everyday use of digital services.
Yeah. Okay. Now I thought maybe they give you insights on political issues to raise. Okay. Thank you very much. Yes, I will move to Armin Grunwald again, just to come back to some of the issues you raised. Let me see. You talked about the interaction between machine and human, so to say. A question that I have for you: if we look at the future, will the future still be man-shaped, or are we just, it says here, one step behind regulating the normative usage of new digital gadgets, because developments are going so fast that we can hardly keep up with it? Can you shortly address that, because we are a bit short on time?
The question is a bit too big to be short, but I will try. Two parts of the answer. The first one is, and in this respect, I answer as a philosopher. We cannot look into the future. We don't have glasses to look into the future. We only can look into the present time. And if we rely on data, for example, using artificial intelligence for pattern recognition in big data and so on, all the data we have are from the past. That is a trivial issue, but most people don't think about this. It's only data of the past. And so I like saying I'm not a prophet. It's not about the question what will come in 10 years or so, but in my eyes it's more the question where want we go for the next 10 years? Where want we to be in 10 years? What can we do in order to arrive there? So it's always, for me, technology assessment, it's kind of looking to the future, but always in the sense and with the objective to help orientating present opinion forming and decision making. So it's more an issue of the present time, not a kind of future studies or so. And in the second answer is yes, development goes faster and faster. And if we remember, all of the data we have are from the past, and scientists, they explore the data and evaluate them and so on. But all what they evaluate is from the past, and the development goes faster and faster. And there might be, I don't know, I'm not a prophet, there might come a point in some future where regulation or proactive action is no longer possible. That everything would be driven simply by what's happening anyway. I'm not very afraid of this. So I'm not a kind of, let me say, I'm not an apocalyptic person. But my thing is more, let's be careful. Yeah, let's keep attention. Let's keep awake. Yeah, let's explore. Let's develop instruments how to observe the status where we are in order to prevent worse, bad developments if they would be seen in some trends or so.
Okay, thank you. I think that's you're even applauded. Thank you. Now I think it's good to end it in this positive way, and I think we as Apta Institutes we are alert, and that is probably also the message you relate. Mariette, briefly also to you, I think we haven't touched that much on the role and the responsibility of technology companies in the digitalization of society. And you know a lot about that. It was already addressed before. Can you say a few words on that, and then we'll move to the room to see if there are questions or comments there.
Yes, certainly. Thank you. Yeah, I think it was already touched upon by several speakers, that, well, maybe in 1884 it was a dominant state that, that's sort of dystopian future image. Now we know that it can also be big private players that have, actually are very dominant in our current society. And I think it's not so long, maybe a couple of years only, that society has woken up to this and has decided, in Europe at least, that we want to balance that out a bit more. That now, so we've celebrated freedom on the internet and we've celebrated all the benefits it brought us. But now we start to see the cracks and we start to see the deficiencies in our society that it brings too. And we start to realize that we don't have as much control over the public domain, actually, that is also online. And it's really interesting to see the current European Commission taking really, really bold steps, actually, with 5 legislative acts that are coming. I think especially the Digital Services Act package is important when it comes to regulating online platforms, both in the human rights area and in the economy, in the market. And I think it's going to be really important that we see these acts pass and that we see the negotiation succeed. And then the next step also for our parliaments and also for our institutes is also to monitor the implementation, because we will, it's only effective if it's well implemented. So that's going to be a real challenge that I think that we all here in this room can be part of. But it's, things are changing and it's exciting. Yeah.
Thank you very much. That's a strong message. So all the institutes and parliaments, of course, should be aware of what is going on. Will this be implemented? Is it done in the right way? That's an important role. Thank you. So I'm looking around first to the room, and then maybe later on I will move to the Zoom audience. Is there someone in the room who would like to ask a question? I think someone is there with a microphone. Yeah, maybe you can briefly say your name and who you represent, and then ask your question.
Sure. I'm Lola Attenberger from the Digital Society Institute, and I'm asking a question to Mr. Gehring because I wanted to know that you said you would like to have this data institute for improving the data collaboration. But what do you think would that differentiate from the Gaia X project? And then I have another question for Mr. Grunwald because I was wondering, like, as the future actually, I would say, is not predictable, but it's possible to predict the future a little bit through data analysis. For example, I think that the past is always repeating itself, and you see that it's always like the politics is changing. Now we're changing from a completely liberal worldview, maybe back to a more protective era. And yeah, I think we can learn from the past. What do you think about it?
Thank you very much. 2 questions. The first one was for Mr. Gehring. Did you understand the question? Yes, okay. Please go ahead.
Also ich sehe Chancen der Verknüpfung zwischen Gaia X und diesem Dateninstitut, dass es da sinnvolle Synergien sich entwickeln können. Und die Idee des Dateninstituts ist getragen davon, dass Deutschland bei der Digitalisierung sehr weit zurückliegt. Das hat uns die Expertenkommission Forschung und Innovation vor 2 Wochen einmal aufs Neue gespiegelt. Und deshalb ist bei der Digitalisierungsfrage eher der Punkt, wo fangen wir an und wie holen wir diese Modernisierung endlich auf. Und als Bildungsausschussvorsitzender ist mir besonders wichtig, nicht nur die digitale Infrastruktur in den Schulen, sondern die digitalen Kompetenzen der Kinder und Jugendlichen der nachwachsenden Generation, die Digital Natives sind, aber eben auch da stärker empowered werden müssen. Deshalb auch die Lehrkräfte und alle, die mit der nachwachsenden Generation arbeiten.
Yes, I actually see opportunities for synergies and for linking up Gaia X with the Data Institute. I think basically the point is that we in Germany are lagging a very long way behind on these issues. And the Research and Innovation Commission just said that recently again, just emphasized that point once again. So I think really when we're talking about digitalization, the only question really is where do we start, when do we start, and where do we start actually catching up? And as chairman of the Committee on Education, the issue of digitalization in schools is something which is very close to my heart. So it's about making sure that the digital infrastructure is there in the schools, but also, of course, that the children, the young people have the skills that they need. They're digital natives, but nevertheless, they need the skills to empower them. And at the same time, of course, we need to make sure that the teachers and all those people dealing with the children and young people also have the skills and the equipment that they need to be able to make sure that digitalization is really lived, if you like.
Thank you. That's a clear answer. Professor Grunwald, very short. Is history repeating itself? Sorry.
I'm a bit tempted to ask to respond philosophically, and I do it in a little way. Augustine of Hippo, in the 4th century, he wrote very prudently that all what we have of the future is expectation. It's simply expectation. But according to your question, the expectations we have, they show extremely different degrees of validity and expectability. We can, of course, be very certain that tomorrow morning the sun will rise again at 7 o'clock and so on. The weather of the weekend, next weekend, is a bit more uncertain. And as soon as we enter the social dimension, then the future depends on human actions, human behavior, and human decisions. And a few weeks ago or months ago, I don't know, we had a decision of one president in an eastern country. This decision changed our world and it changed our thinking about the future. Or take some other political decisions, for example, nuclear phase out in Germany, 2011. It changed the future of the electricity supply in Germany. And that is not, I do not like to complain about this uncertainty of future knowledge, because it's simply an expression that we are able to shape the future in a certain respect. That's all. Of course, we need the past to learn as much as we can, and even by AI and by big data. But we should also be aware of the limitations.
Thank you very much. I really like this philosophical touch in this room, so thank you again. It's also nice, I think, to address now the participants in the Zoom meeting. I can see several. For example, I see Tore smiling already, but on the left side is Michael Nentwich from Austria, the Technology Assessment Institute in Austria. Is there something you would like to add to this discussion, having heard the several parliamentarians? What would you like to add?
Thank you very much for giving me the word. I hope you can hear me in the room as well. Thanks for the salient insight so far. It's an interesting discussion. I would like to raise the following point. We heard from all experts around the world and also in the panel tonight that governance of the digital world is essential, for instance, in order to save democracy. My question is whether our society, our political system, will be able to deliver suitable measures at the right time. Obviously, strong and intelligent measures are needed, and they need to be taken quickly. And my tough question to the panelists, in particular the politicians in the room, is how will Europe cope with this challenge, given the international interconnectedness? Will the West follow the path of Russia and China and so on, and organize its part of this upcoming splinter net? That's my question. I'm curious to know your opinions on that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Michael Nentwich. It's a difficult question, but who would like to take up the challenge from the politicians here? Yes? Oh, you have your own, yes.
Yeah, that is it on? Yeah, okay, now you can hear me. Thank you very much for the question, and I think it's a very hard question, difficult question. And as Professor Grunwald just mentioned, the future might be bright ahead, but it's very uncertain what will happen. And I think it's not a question whether we will follow, it's a question that we do not follow this approach of what is going on in Russia and China. Because we here in Europe, as well as in the United States, for example, and many other states around the world, we are a liberal democracy. We want to keep freedom, we want to have democracy, we want to have the individual rights, the human rights. And if you use the technology in a way such as it's used in China, and for example, I have some students from my university who live in China in an exchange program, and where they have this credit system, then you see what might go on with that and how things can not be directly manipulated, but that you are manipulated in a way that you behave like this or that to have access to this benefit or that benefit, to avoid this wise or that wise. And so therefore, it's our job, I think, as politicians, to engage that we will still have a liberal, free democracy. Meaning we have to think about, for example, competition, as I mentioned before, in the economy. We have to think about the access to information. We have to think about the knowledge and the skills of our students, as well as our teachers, as mentioned by Kai. We also have to think about the networks, the technology that we need. So I think it's not a question of we follow them or not, we don't follow them, because if we follow them, we give up our liberal democracy. And I think if we need a let me see, an agreement in our society that we want this. And I think the majority in our society wants to live in a free, liberal democracy and not in a society in which you are, monitored even if you cross the street with a red light.
Thank you very much. A very clear message. And I think that answers Michael's question to a great extent. And I think, Laura, if someone wants to say, Laura, you want to say something? Please, Ms. Kraft.
Yeah, I also think this is a super, let's say, difficult question, and we have to think on that more deeply. But I think in the end it's all about cooperation, because we feel like the challenges of tomorrow and of today, we cannot face them alone. We have to cooperate. For example, research lives from cooperation, sharing information, sharing knowledge, sharing, let's say, and integration. And I think we all have to think about our values. Does the society want to live in democracy, and what are our democratic values? And then we have to think like, how can we protect them? And we can do this if we cooperate with each other. For example, on European basis, or something what we are actually doing here now, that we are working together and having this kind of discussion, and this connects us to each other. And I think like the networks, we have to stick to our networks, we have to improve them, and we have to work together, and then together, only together, we can challenge this face these big challenges. For example, climate change, like pandemic crisis, or even now, the threat of war. We cannot stand alone, and we cannot just think in national borders. We have to, have a strong and bigger network and cooperate with each other.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much also for bringing us back to why we are here and why having a network in Europe is so important. Thank you. There is a question still from the audience which I would like to address. Please go ahead.
Thank you very much. My name is Gabriele Wendorf. I'm from Technische Universität Berlin, and I have a question concerning the energy consumption subject that we heard about in the beginning. And I realized that, for example, even students that are very interested in climate aspects, they do not realize which are the effects of digitalization for the energy consumption. So my question is whether you as parliamentarians or also society and also science can do something to raise awareness. Maybe we need something like an energy impact assessment for strategies in the field of digitalization. I don't know, maybe somebody of you has an idea.
Thank you very much for your important question. Who would like to answer this question? Yeah, but he's in the... Is there someone here in the panel who could answer it? Okay, Reinhard.
Yeah, my name is Reinhard Grünwald. I'm with the Office of Technology Assessment at the German Bundestag, and one very short answer is that there is a project ongoing that exactly addresses these kinds of questions, and actually the report is written already and in the process of acceptance by our esteemed rapporteur group, and I hope that in the next few months, very few months, you will get the final result. And thank you.
Thank you very much, Reinhard Grünwald. There's a question from... microphone.
Ralf Lenkert, Berichterstatter für die Linke. Entschuldigung, dass ich nicht in Englisch spreche, ist besser, ich mache das in Deutsch. Der Bericht war fertig. Das Problem ist, in Deutschland hat sich die Digitalisierung komplett geändert durch die Corona-Krise. Das heißt, wir haben einen Sprung gemacht, den man vorher nie für möglich gemacht hätte. Das heißt, der Bericht muss jetzt dringend aktualisiert werden, weil ansonsten die Daten einfach veraltet sind. Und sonst wären wir weiter. Aber ein paar Sachen haben den Weg schon gefunden. Und wenn man weiß, dass eine Überweisung einer der Kryptowährung bis zu 500 Kilowattstunden benötigt, nur eine Überweisung, dann weiß man, dass dieser Weg ein falscher Weg ist, der in die ökologische Katastrophe führt, wenn man ihn so fortsetzt.
Dankeschön. You will translate.
My name is Ralph Lenkert from the Left Party. I'm the rapporteur from the Left Party, and I just wanted to make the point that the report was actually finished, but then of course COVID intervened, and when COVID came and the pandemic came, we started to use digital technology in a completely new way. So that meant that the report itself was kind of out of date straight away as soon as COVID hit us. But a lot of the report was already finished, and there are some interesting things, for example, in terms of one example is a money transfer of a cryptocurrency, which uses up to 500 kilowatt hours just for a single transfer. So that is the sort of thing that is really going to lead us into a disaster, I have to say.
A question from the Zoom, I hear. Thank you very much for translating, and thank you for your comment, Ralph Lenkert. A question from the Zoom, or is it that I will ask someone in the Zoom meeting also to give a comment on what you have heard today? I'm not sure if the signal meant that there was a question. I think Tore Tenne from the Norwegian Board of Technology wants to say something. Now I see Michael.
Okay.
Tore, please go ahead.
Thank you so much. Pleasure to kind of be here. It's so good to have Apta going again with a physical meeting, and not least that the two intellectual powerhouses of Apta, the Dutch and the German, are co-hosting an event. Well, I was thinking about the shocks that were mentioned. I think that's a very good observation. We were preparing for the climate crisis. Pandemic shock came, and now we have the war. We are trying to sort out now what are the lasting impacts, what can we learn, what do we need to discuss, energy, of course, how to respond. Does this mean more autonomy? Does it mean going more on fossil, on nuclear, or speeding up the transfer? In terms of digital, I want to make a point about the preceding crisis, the finance crisis, and you got what the former questionnaire asked about, the cryptocurrency, because Bitcoin was a response to the finance crisis, and so it was a way of decentralizing, going outside of governments and central banks. And what we see in the crisis now, that we can see that cryptocurrencies can be a way to come out of the sanctions, but also to bring with you values. And I wanted to know, what do you think this will mean for the current crisis? What will it mean for finance technology, for crypto technology? What lessons can we draw? What do we need to discuss now? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Tore. I'm looking around here. I see a lot of...
I could say something, but I can only say, Tore, we need a TA study on this. Yeah, that is a big task. We cannot say it just in 5 minutes or 2 minutes.
Yes. Okay, maybe so when the presidency... Oh, sorry.
May I?
Yeah.
Okay.
You go.
Yeah, so because I feel addressed by the question, because I'm an economist and joined in the discussion on Bitcoins 2 weeks ago. So what could be the lessons? I think the lesson first is relating to the financial crisis, together now with these short-run crises such as Corona and the war and the sanctions linked to the war, that we have to think about the role of the central banks. Because the central banks fear a little bit the private Bitcoin system, because they fear that the Bitcoin and all these other cryptocurrencies could become money, fiat money, in the sense that you can use it for transactions as a store of value and a unit of accounting. And if we would substitute our currency, the euro, for example, by Bitcoin, then the central bank will lose power. It will lose the power to have an impact on the economy. So therefore, they discuss this digital euro. And so I think we will see a vast discussion on that. And it will be driven by the question, who has the power to determine the amount of money, the supply of money in our economy. And the central banks will also think about that because of a new idea, a pretty new idea in economic theory. It's a modern monetary theory in the sense that the central bank could fund the public spending as much as the government wants them to do. And so we must be aware that if we follow this, then we will enter in a new, let me say, time of inflation. And so this is, for me, one of the main questions as an economist. What is the role of the central bank? Do we allow private currencies to substitute our legal currency and therefore limit the power of the central bank and thereby also the power, let me say, of governments?
Thank you very much. It's very good to have an economist on the panel. Mr. Gehring wants to say something?
Eine kurze grundsätzliche Anmerkung. Ich glaube, dass all die Krisen, die auch Sie aufgezählt haben, nicht so massiv auf uns treffen würden, wenn man früher auf die Wissenschaft gehört hätte, auf die Friedensforschung gehört hätte, auf die Klimaforschung gehört hätte und auch auf die Gesundheitsforschung. Krisenvorsorge, Vorsorgeprinzip, Prävention, abstrahieren von dem, was kommen kann und dann auch mal auf eine Warnung hören, wenn es um Energiesouveränität geht. Und das ist sowohl bei Energie als auch bei Digitalisierung wichtig, dass es eine europäische Souveränität gibt. Nicht aber vielleicht in den Diskursen von vor 2, 3 Wochen, dass es Systemkonkurrenzen gibt. Vielleicht steckt in der aktuellen Kriegskrise auch ein Momentum für ein Revival der Weltgemeinschaft. Zumindest bei der UN-Vollversammlung hatte ich da Hoffnung. Und Europa hat sich gerade bei der Russlandkrise, bei dem Angriffskrieg auch neu untergehakt. Insofern, wenn wir dieses gute Momentum in all dem Schrecklichen nutzen, sind wir vielleicht viel besser gewappnet für künftige Krisen.
I wanted to just make one point in principle, the fact that all the crises we're dealing with at the moment would not have such a massive impact if we had listened to science in the first place, if we'd listened to the scientists with regard to peace policy experts, the climate crisis, and also the health science, if we'd listened to all of that. So that's an important point, that we need to listen to what science is saying to try and prevent things from happening in the future, to look at what science is saying and put that into maybe more abstract terms and think about what that means for the future. And I think listen to what people have said about energy sovereignty in the past as well. There were warnings, the science was telling us that. And I think with regard to energy sovereignty, but also digital sovereignty, it's important to make sure that we have a strong Europe, that there's a strong European sovereignty in both of those areas, not in terms of competition between systems, which has been talked about, but I think that's really a very important point, and maybe something positive can come out of what's happening at the moment with the war, etc. Maybe there'll be some kind of revival of the international community. I had some hope that that would be the case, and when we look at what's happening at the United Nations, the General Assembly, maybe that is the case, and likewise at European level, we've really seen that Europe has really come together together in this crisis. And so that is maybe an optimistic word, that maybe something good can come out of it if we just learn from this and learn how important it is to listen to what science is telling us.
Thank you very much, both of you. A lot of messages in that last bit that Mr. Gehring said. We are getting to the end of this discussion. I'm not sure if there's someone, I'm looking at Mariette and to Armin, who wants to say 2-3 things that you think are the main takeouts, let's say political points, policy points that we should bring to the table, taking from this discussion. Next to what already has been said, of course.
Yeah, thanks. I guess it's really hard to take priorities out of this really rich and breadth of a discussion. So I think the discussion really shows how many issues we're dealing with in shaping digital society, and that it's, quite a big challenge. So I leave this meeting with maybe a further sense of urgency, but also with more inspiration, not the least because we have a collaborative effort here. And I think you feel also in the room also the urge to work together to address some of these issues. So that is really really important and inspiring. And I think I wanted to tie some things together. So we were talking about the role of science and the role of politics, and how can they strengthen each other and collaborate. And I guess to summarize, you could say, it's for the citizens or the public to say, where do we want to be? So it's not about looking into the future, but deciding in the present what future we want. So where do we want to be? That's our democracy, that is citizens, that will tell us. It's about science, what the science can tell us what the options are. And then it's for politics to set the guidelines and actually make those choices and guide us in that direction. So I think we all have a role here, and leave here inspired.
Yeah. So being here in Berlin, I just thought about these 30 years after falling the wall, after the wall broke down. And in that time, there was a famous book on the end of history. And I'm afraid, seen from today, that book and the thinking behind it contributed considerably to the mindsets in Western societies, and they got too relaxed. They developed too, let me say, business as usual societies, expecting that tomorrow there will be also business as usual, perhaps a little bit better. That's all what would change. Disruption was not foreseen. But now we saw the world economic crisis in 2008. We witnessed the pandemic and now the war. So 3 brutal wake-up calls to get aware of vulnerability of our modern society. And that's, I guess, will be a main issue of technology assessment at the level of parliaments, but also beyond in the coming years and perhaps even longer, to research the vulnerabilities of society, to explore strategies of resilience, and to keep aware of precaution. So we have to be aware that we cannot expect that business as usual will go on and will go on. So that's not a very good message to go into the evening, but I guess it is true. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much. This is the end of this discussion, and I would really like to thank all the panelists for sharing their thoughts and really making this a very fruitful discussion. And it's also good to have politicians and scientists working together, thinking together on the big challenges that we have when we want to shape tomorrow's digital society. And I would now like to give the word back to Mr. Sattler.
Thank you very much, Petra. Dear ladies and gentlemen, in my closing words for tonight, I'd really like to, for one last time, extend a very big thank you to all the members of parliament who took the opportunity to go here to the embassy and have this discussion, to the representatives of Rathenau, to the representatives of TAB. There are a couple of people that I'd like to thank specifically, who worked very hard behind the scenes to make this event a possibility. Laurien Moeilijker. There you are. Yeah. Nathalie Hustings, in the back. Stephanie Desmotier. There you are. And from the top, of course, also Dr. Reinhard Grunwald. You already heard him. And from Rathenau, Dr. Jajuk Willems. Thank you very much. We've arranged for some refreshments now, because I think the discussion that we had here is really a source for further discussion here in an informal way. So you're very welcome to stay here a little bit longer, discuss with each other, have a drink, have something to eat, and I hope to be able to welcome you back in the near future in this embassy or meet you elsewhere in Berlin. Thank you very much.